Good to see you.
Well, nice,
Thank you, sir.
Done you on.
Thank you very much. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed the break. I hope you guys really enjoyed the morning sessions. They were so interesting, so insightful. Really, really great to see us get up to such a strong start. So we're going to session 3 now, looking at the effect of the COVID pandemic on social businesses in East Africa. The last 12 months have been probably more different than any 12 months before that, but definitely different in each country. And so we want to learn more about the different challenges and kind of opportunities for social businesses in East Africa, and how they were able to overcome them and plan a way through. So during the panel, will be moderated by Managing Director and Operating Officer of Yunus Social Business, Lakshma Rushanathan. Executive Director joining on the panel will be the Executive Vice Chairman of Grameen Telecom, Mr. Arshul Hassan. Country Manager of Live and Kick in Kenya, Joe Ryan, and then CEO of Green Bioenergy Uganda, Mr. Ziwa Hillington, and also joined by East Africa Director for Investments, Yunus Social Business here in Uganda, that's Richard Tugume, and Susan Nagalwa, the Investment Director for Kenya for Yunus Social Business. So really hope you guys enjoy this session and learn more about what was going on for social businesses here in East Africa. Over to you, Lakshmi.
Thank you, Dan, and welcome everybody to this session. I would definitely, of course, welcome very especially Professor Yunus, and I believe he has a few words for us to kick off this session before we invite our panelists to share their opinions.
Well, I just welcome all of you. It's a fantastic panel here, and you have a good deliberation, and we're looking forward to it. Welcome. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Professor. And thanks, Dan, for that introduction. As you mentioned, yes, I think the COVID pandemic has hit different countries in different ways. It has also hit different stakeholders in different ways. As you mentioned, I'm the CEO at Yunus Social Business, and we invest in very small businesses worldwide. And we have seen the impact of the pandemic on different stakeholders, from the businesses to the people that these businesses work with, and to the other companies that actually support these social businesses. And one stark reality of what has come out is that the pandemic has impacted people who were least equipped to handle a disaster of this proportions, is how I would phrase it. We have a very interesting panel for all of you today, which brings together very different perspectives. So we have two panelists who run their own social businesses. One is a business called Alive and Kicking from Kenya, and the other is Green Bioenergy from Uganda. And I will, of course, request them to introduce themselves. So you will hear the perspective of the social business from the ground, the struggles that they went through during this period. We have with us also 3 managing directors who manage their own operations and therefore have a wider, I would say, perspective of multiple organizations and how these organizations faced, survived, and overcame the pandemic. And this would be Mr. Ashraful Hassan from Grameen Telecom, Richard Tugume from Yunus Social Business Uganda, and Susan Nagalwa from Yunus Social Business Kenya. So what I would request is a very quick round of introductions from all the speakers. And I would request all of you to just briefly state who you are, which social business you represent, and what is the impact and the purpose of the social business that you work for. So may I request to start with Mr. Hassan? So I think you're on mute.
Yeah. So I am Ashraful Hassan, working with Grameen for last more than 36 years. And now I am serving as a managing director, newly formed company named Onunna Construction and Development. Last month we formed it. It is one of the concern of Grameen Group, and also serving as a executive vice chairman and CEO of 6 other Grameen organizations. Today I am representing here for 2 companies. One is Grameen Telecom and another is Grameen Telecom Trust. So purpose of our social business, we established mega project focusing on healthcare, education, industrial setup, and environmental aspect. And also young entrepreneurship development and job creation is in our program.
Thank you, sir. May I invite Jo Ryan to introduce herself?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jo Ryan and I'm the country director of Alive and Kicking. So Alive and Kicking, what we do is actually we make footballs. It's very easy, but we make footballs. So our social mission is we make, play and live. So we make footballs, we provide ethical employment through hand stitching of leather footballs here in Kenya. We play because we're a social enterprise, we try and improve access to play for vulnerable children. So we provide access to play, and then we live. We try and we do community outreach programs to improve health awareness. And that's our mission and vision.
Thank you, Jo. Over to you, Ziva.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ziwa Ellington. For about 9 years, I've been doing business development for social enterprises and NGOs in the clean energy sector and health sector. I work with Green by Energy, which is about 10 years now. And our focus has been to innovate, produce, and distribute clean cooking goods, that's mitigate climate change, deforestation, while we create local employment opportunities and some of these products and the improved cook stores. Thank you.
Thank you, Ziva. Over to you, Richard.
So I'm Richard Tugume. I head the country program for Yunus Social Business Foundation, Uganda. It's nearly 3 years for me in this position. And we have a multitude of clients ranging from sectors like agriculture, water and sanitation, and renewable energy. Thank you.
And Susan?
Hello, I am Susan Galawa. I started the work of Yunus Social Business here in the beautiful country of Kenya. We are the youngest of the Yunus Social Businesses across YSB. Our portfolio consists of companies in the cook stove sector, energy, and we are also expanding aggressively into agriculture. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Susan. Great. I think the first voice that would be very important for us to understand was how did social businesses on the ground face the COVID-19 and its, of course, implications and repercussions, and what was the COVID relief that they had access to that helped them overcome this. So for this, may I invite Ziva to talk about how GBE survived through a year of, I would say, extreme pain.
Thank you very much, Lakshmi, and indeed you put it right, a year of extreme pain. So soon as COVID-19 hit, there were so many changes generally in the whole country, but as a business, we looked at sales drop, we looked at production drop and production disease, the overall operations. And of course, employee productivity limitations also came in because, you know, people had to stay at home, or you had to change how people were working, even became higher. Like, for example, in Uganda, the taxis were taking a few people, and that means people work. And then the other part is also with the other value chain where we have the suppliers. Suppliers barely materials. So the whole ecosystem became tough from the suppliers to the people at the production site. And of course, not just with the business, because remember the people we work with have family. And so there was no certainty. Like, we're saying, would we keep the jobs the next day? Will the jobs be there the next day? Will we have money for health? Will we have money for school fees? And they were looking out there, they were not sure. because it was sudden, of course, me being inclusive, managing the business, I was quite looking out for the solutions. What would it look like? The holistic approach of working in a network that will support you to grow, not looking just at the enterprise in terms of revenues, but just the entire value chain from your suppliers to your employees. And Yunus Social Business came in very handy. They spoke out not just with the financing, but they looked at the value chain of the employees, checking in day by day with help, networked help. We found that at least 30 jobs were maintained, and that is at least the 30 jobs they received. We still sustained production. Soon as spoke to us and said, what do you want to do? How can we support you with the weekly phone calls, emails, even people visiting and checking how we are doing? You find that even our suppliers still manage to deliver at least a minimum of raw materials to produce. The other interesting aspect is about our customers. Soon as COVID-19, time for the home users and the businesses. They said, we cannot pay you during this period of time. You need to give us more time. It was a bit scary because with the little money we would expect from them, it would help us run business. But on the other hand, we understood that, they were also in a mess. They were looking for answers. And I think some of them were saying, we need to keep our cash reserve. And so that impacted us. We're like, okay, we need to give you goods, but will you pay us back? But I mean, if we got a bit of the subsidizing the salaries for the employees catered for, so we still managed to provide some products to the customers who wanted to buy from us during COVID. Was about sustaining employee motivation. So employee motivation, still work during COVID-19 with the high costs. I mean, all families, I think we're wondering, because you would speak to some of the employees, like, what do you think? And they were like, we're not so sure, and they will keep on asking us, what's the future? Will you keep us here? And soon as they got a salary after 2 months, they were like, after 1 month they get the salary, the next month they get the salary. So they gained this confidence, and I can proudly say, working with a team of about 30 people, I had all managers, motivated because they realized that they had a family, not just a family with just the employees, but a family beyond the employees, a family being part of Yunus Social Business. And I think for me, the business development support, the financing support, the check-ins made quite a lot of sense when we speak about social business to the employees. So that's the overview. There's so much that really happened, and why when the Yunus team came in with the support, the business development support, the financing, it changed quite a lot. And I think the resilience that we had built, when the company was started because of its foundation, but also the emphasis of social business during the COVID-19, did a great pivot, and we built quite a lot of resilience, and some of it new resilience because COVID-19 was new to us. Thank you, Rakshmi.
Thank you, Ziva. I think that exemplifies, what a social business is in terms of not thinking about profits, not thinking necessarily about what the bottom line is, but putting the human and the cause at the center and heart of, most importantly, all your thinking, right? And thereafter, all your activities. I'm glad to hear that GB has survived, and I also hear now that you're coming back to sort of pre-pandemic levels of, revenues and operations. So that's great. Over to you, Joe. Would you like to share how Alive and Kicking went through this tough period?
Sure, thank you. And I think similar to the previous speaker, I think it was in terms of the shock and the suddenness. So I think in our case, basically when you have a business of making footballs and volleyballs, and then all of a sudden overnight, group activities are banned. So group sports are banned, group gatherings are banned. So effectively overnight your business just nosedives. And that happened in March. So in the first month, like we saw our sales drop by 85% in terms of ball demand. Then you had schools and learning institutions closing. We had corporates, because a lot of our clients would be corporates, and they would be buying footballs for branding purposes, for events that they would be holding, marketing events, and obviously they were being cancelled. So definitely March and April everybody was in a headspin. And then on a personal and a human level, like we were just terrified. We did not know what this thing was, this COVID-19. Our staff were very worried, and our staff come from very vulnerable backgrounds. You know, and most of them are in Nairobi, where we're based, but they would have extended family back in the rural areas. So they were in Nairobi, and then they were worried about their extended family back in the rural areas. You also had schools closed, so now people had children at home. And while a lot of people adapted working from home, as a stitcher, you cannot work from home. You've got to come in. So in April, we actually closed and we let everybody go home because we just did not know what to do. And then I think in May, we began to say, okay, how can we manage this? And our biggest risk was really, you know, costs, because we knew we were going to be, at the time we thought a couple of months, so we really focused on costs and how we could manage our costs. So we really tried to get cash in from people who owed us money. And then in terms of, we reduced our ordering levels, so our stock levels, which is leather, which is probably one of the biggest things that would cost. We reduced our leather, so we weren't holding a lot of cost. We renegotiated rent relief from our landlord, which was really amazing. He gave us a 50% rent relief for the whole of the year, the whole of last year. And then obviously our engagement with Yunus. So we have been talking to the YSB pre-pandemic with Susan, obviously, in terms of investing in a lamination machine, which is a process we want to bring in-house. So we had gone through a due diligence, and I think then obviously when this happened, we started a conversation about what was our needed need, and it was really salary, similar to our Ugandan friend. You know, our stitchers, they get paid piecemeal. If they're not stitching balls, they don't get paid. And unlike other European countries where you had governments furloughing staff and paying people's staff salary, as in Live in Kicking, we did not have that. And so at the time, which was really good, we were able to pivot because we've had this relationship with Yunus Business, the YSB. Even though we've been talking about a machine, which I still hope we will do someday, we were able to pivot to what our immediate need was, and that was support for salaries, for stitches. We managed everything, and in terms of, so we slowly brought people back, and then we continued. So now over the last, 8 to 9 months, we overall, we closed the year still alive and kicking, which I think was, which is just a bonus in itself. Our staff, we did have to reduce the number of staff, but we have still managed to maintain our core staff. In terms of ball sales, in a normal year, we would hand stitch these guys. We'd hand stitch about 40,000 of these a year and sell them. That would have been our target for last year. We closed the year with about 22,000, so effectively 50%. So that was a bit of a hit, but because we were able to manage our overhead costs and the support to their salary support and subsidy from YSB, we've managed the year. Now this year, so the big thing for us was schools were going to reopen in January, so we were expecting that bounce. So when schools have reopened, and it's brilliant. Unfortunately, we don't see the bounce yet because in Kenya we're now in a wave 3. Banning on sports and group activities is still there, and it probably will be with us for another couple of months. But we are seeing a bit of a pickup in terms of people just going in and buying footballs in the retail shops for their kids at home. So while I think there's no big group activities, we are seeing, you know, people are still doing sports, but in a smaller group. What's also good is we also export, so we also see a little bit of a pickup in the UK, and we're hoping that will pick up a bit more because once they go through their vaccination program. But so far, I think the status quo remains the same though. We're still very hesitant in taking on any additional staff. We keep our order levels to a minimum. One of the biggest things actually, the only thing we import for the bowl is actually the bladders, the thing that's inside the bowl. And we actually import that from India. And it always causes a bit of a headache because you have to have a minimum order level to make it cost effective. And we're struggling at the moment. Now we're okay at the moment, but we can't invest like a big amount of money sitting in stock for the leather. The other thing we are seeing, and I'd be very keen to hear other panelists on this today, what we're seeing in Kenya in the last month, and Susan might attest to this, but our suppliers are increasing their prices. So our leather has just gone up. Our wax has just gone up. Our thread that we use, everything has gone up in the last month. And I think this is like now they're like the post, like people are really, really struggling. And the other thing is this is happening at a time when there's very little cash in the economy anyway. So I think overall, I think we survived last year. I think it was fantastic. I think a combination of cost management and subsidy support for the salaries. That's what got us through. This year, I think our strategy has to be a little bit more different. I'm hoping if Europe opens up and other regions, that we probably try and focus on sales more, because I think locally, it's going to be a while. We're now looking maybe like Christmas, the pre-Christmas. So we're still maintaining that we think maybe by September, October, and then we'll have a bounce. And the thing about Alive and Kicking is our limiting factors, is the stitches. As in, if I get an order tomorrow morning for 1,000 boards, I still have a stitcher can stitch 4 boards in a day. So we are trying to do some training programs so we can actually give somebody a skill and build up a pipeline of stitches without actually bring them on our payroll, so that if we get this bounce in October, November, then we will be able to employ people quickly. And it takes about 6 months to train a stitcher from ground zero to be stitching 3 or 4 boards a day. And the idea of these training programs also, because the area we're in Dagoveti, there's high levels of youth unemployment, is to also give the youth a skill while we're waiting, but not put an overhead on the organization. I think that's it.
Thank you, Jo. Thank you. And that was quite a story. It's been quite a journey. And I do hope, markets rebound and you will, be back to better than 50% of the pre-COVID levels. But that's an interesting point to bring up, which is prices going up of your raw materials. I don't know if Ziva has seen that as well. Do chip in, Ziva, have you seen that for your raw materials in Uganda as well? I see you nod, so I assume yes.
Yes. It has really gone up. I would say the whole entire cost. I mean, we had a bit of the election, but after the election, things have been changed. I
see. No, so these are the
and actually, can I just give one more point just on the COVID? It's one of our suppliers, Susan, you know them, LIK. They're a very big leather provider here. They're actually now closing their branch in Kenya because they actually sell 90% of the leather export to Italy. So pre-COVID, Italy was their biggest market. They are now really winding down their operation here. They're still going to be in Kampala, but because they have lost the Italian market. And now we will get another supplier, but it has a knock-on effect. So we're beginning to see I think this is the second layer effect of COVID. It's going further down the supply chain.
Fair. I mean, so basically it's a snowballing effect, and you're basically seeing the different effects of the pandemic during and now post. I can't even say post because I suspect all the countries that are right now represented on this panel are going through their second/third wave, and the wave actually looks far worse than what it did the first time around. But on that note, let me just turn to Richard and Susan, because both of you manage wider portfolios in your respective countries. And we have heard perspectives from both Jo and Ryan of specific social businesses. So over to you. Maybe we can start with you, Richard, in terms of looking at what was the impact on your portfolio, what are you hearing from the entrepreneurs, and what has been your key learning from this experience?
Yeah, thank you, Lashmi. For me, from where I sit, the first interesting observation now with the benefit of hindsight is that, first of all, and this is very unique, I'm going to speak very uniquely to about Uganda, the country, and how the COVID crisis has played out, is that interestingly, or funny enough, the biggest cause of the disruption and destruction here in this country in regards to COVID was not so much about the disease itself and the deaths and misery it created. It was more about the mitigation efforts that were instituted to deal with the disease. And just to give you to put this in context, our official records are such that we haven't gotten even up to 500,000 infections yet, and we haven't gotten to more than 400 deaths yet in over a year. But the measures that were instituted, and some people may argue that those measures were what really caused the low incidences of deaths and infections to some extent. The measures were very, very harsh and cross-cutting, that they destroyed a lot of livelihoods and caused a lot of misery to the lives behind those livelihoods. Just to give you some basic examples, public transport was shut down 100% in the first 4 to 5 months of the pandemic, and that's about April to around about September. Of course, the public gatherings were completely closed, so there were no public functions and things like that. We had 15 million children in school in a population of about 44 million. So you're talking about nearly a third of the population that was in school was completely sent home. And so the entire school economy was closed 100%, from the smallest nursery school to the most advanced tertiary institution. And you can imagine the entire value chain that goes along with that. Suppliers to the schools, the scholastic materials, the teachers themselves, and anything that was built around the school system was lost. And then there were other measures like, of course, entertainment industry was completely closed, the sports and theaters and stadiums and anything entertainment was closed. In fact, those are largely still closed to date. And so the price that the livelihoods paid for what the final end price that was paid by the lives, with hindsight now, is turning out to be some kind of regret for the country and for the population. And so when you look at the effect of all those measures on the client level, I would personally categorize my clients into 3 categories in terms of how they bore the brunt of the COVID mitigation measures. We had clients like one of mine that does motorcycle leasing. And these are business motorcycle leasing because these are used for usually urban center town use as commuters, carrying luggage and passengers around urban centers, and they're usually given to unemployed youth who have no living, and they pay these over a period of 16 to 18 months. And so because of shutdown of public transport, this kind of client almost bore the brunt 100% because no revenue could come in. All the operations were shut down, and they had to sit and wait until operations were resumed much later on, which took about 8 to 10 months. So that was like the most severe category. And then the least severe category was the one of those in agriculture. We have one client that does coffee export for smallholder farmers in their thousands. And for them, agriculture as a sector entirely was given preferential status under the COVID mitigation measures, because it was understood that for the country to survive, agriculture, food prices, etc. had to be stabilized. So that was given, free rein. And in fact, those ones thrived. They took a chance to thrive because everyone else was shut down. And they were the ones that were doing well. And then on the medium clients, where I would classify GBE, those that didn't suffer the extreme brunt, and neither did they have free rein like the agribusiness clients. And those suffered in the areas of in the areas of staff unable to come to work because public transport was shut down. They suffered in areas of increased cost of living for some commodities that became scarce because of supply challenges and things like that. And so for those ones, they kind of, had a chance to kind of shrink operations, but, keep a skeleton kind of operation that would help them live to see a better day, which indeed they have come through, as Ziwa rightly testifies. And so in regards to mitigations and how some of them went through it, obviously one big part of it was our COVID relief grant that we were able to give them. And that was able to cover, payroll for 6 months, which were really the worst, and allowed them some liquidity to be able to survive, even when sales were dropping drastically and things like that. And then others, like Tugende, of course, who were doing the border leasing, those ones were able to defer their borrower payments, which also for us, they were able to do that at the micro level for their client, to themselves, and then between us as lenders to the major borrower who is the main client to us. We're also able to restructure our loans and allow them a deferring of loans, and this varied from client to client anywhere between 3 months to 6 months, just so that they can be able to manage their liquidity in a manner that does not strain them and drive them out of business. But for us as a country in the region, I think we've been lucky to have suffered least from the overall effects of the pandemic. We in fact are not even suffering a surge that is happening in most countries as of now, the second or third surge. And most of the things are beginning to open up. And we believe that one of the things that is helping out, and it will be yet to be documented after being proven, is that I think the fact that we are one of the youngest populations in the world is helping out, because most of the people who get infected are still able to fight off the disease and survive. The vaccination is beginning to get ramped up now, even when we got it late. So things are beginning to look up and beginning to normalize, and we believe that hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be able to get back to near normal in this situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. For all the participants, if you have any questions for the panelists, do feel free to add them to the Q&A box, and I will pose them to the panelists. Thank you, Richard. I mean, I think that the themes that are coming out of everybody's perspective is the human toll and the human cost of what the pandemic is. I mean, needless to say, the financial cost is also pretty heavy, but clearly it has had multiple effects in terms of supply chain disruptions, employee motivation, employee confidence, and then of course, just fundamental disruption to livelihoods in models where you're not an employee, pretty much like what Richard mentioned about the leasing company. Over to you, Susan. In Kenya, with your portfolio and the broader ecosystem, what is it that you have been seeing in the past year?
Thank you, Lakshmi. I think for Kenya, the government tried to strike a balance between lives and livelihoods. So the transport system, for example, wasn't completely shut down. It's just that you have to be spaced a certain way. That then means it's more expensive for people to go to work, and that feeds into the cost of production and the prices of goods. And we could see that across various businesses, because even for the commercial businesses, especially for agriculture, even when we had restriction of movement, those businesses were still allowed to transport goods and even outside of the curfew time. So I can, in a sense, commend the government for the initial measures that they have put in place and for trying to strike what I would call a very delicate balance. We are now, of course, in a pretty severe third wave, and we've gone back into a lockdown, but it's still a lockdown that still allows for a certain amount of commercial activity to take place. What we have seen for our social businesses I'd probably categorize them in two ways. One is the ones that need to refocus or maybe redirect their efforts because they were extremely hit. Their revenues of their business were hit, and therefore their business models were significantly challenged. I think maybe as Joe has very well articulated what happened to Alive and Kicking. When schools shut down, it's like half of your revenue has gone. So now it's sort of trying to think, how do you refocus that business to either look for other customers in other markets? For others, this particular period has reaffirmed their business model because they were still making changes throughout their business, and therefore that has meant that there was a drop in revenues initially, but that they've been able to now come back to almost pre-pandemic levels, even if we are still in this phase. And that really has been, when I look at these businesses, what I can say is the businesses that take the time to constantly introspect and ask themselves, how can they better meet their customer needs? How can they improve their operational efficiencies? Who else would want their product other than the current customer base that they have? Those have been the ones who have more easily pivoted and be able to realign their efforts. So for some, I'd say they've been forced to refocus their business models. And for others, the pandemic has actually reaffirmed their business models. And therefore, they have a lot more confidence to continue to grow their businesses. The lessons for us has been financial support is crucial for these businesses because all of them went into a cash flow crisis. You're unable to pay your employees, so they did need payroll support. You have to renegotiate your obligations, be it your rent, any other loan obligations that you have. So having cash for situations like this is important. I think secondly, it's thinking about social support for people in vulnerable sectors, because even under normal circumstances, if even one of these employees got hit by COVID and they are the main breadwinner and support another 5 or 10 people, it means all of those people have all of a sudden gone into poverty. And sometimes it has taken a long time for these people to recover. So I think we need to also look at social support, especially for people in the BOP or vulnerable people, and start to think, can we structure products that are relevant for them? Because today it could be COVID, next time it could be an accident at work, or it could be a different thing that forces this breadwinner to now become incapacitated, and therefore they cannot work, and that then moves this whole family and the people that they support into poverty. The third thing is non-financial support in terms of strategic support, because a lot of these businesses were not, in a sense, they went into a freeze, and you sometimes need maybe somebody with a bit more experience to help you think through how do you re-strategize this business and allow yourself to now be open to new opportunities or create, in a sense, new opportunities for yourself. And I think one thing we don't provide a lot for social businesses is that strategic support. Sometimes it is too costly for them to have somebody to just come in and review and review their business for them. But I think it's important to have that in place. And that is one of the reasons for us at YSB why we restructured our investment readiness program to be more of an advisory service that we are giving. Initially, we would do a couple of days of training and to prepare them for investment readiness. But this time we stretched it out into a longer training period where they actually got one-on-one support for their businesses in key areas. And that helped for the participants, it helped them to rethink their businesses and even what sort of capital do they need? When is the right time to get the capital? What are the strengths they have and can they play better to those strengths? So I think also that non-financial support should be extended to portfolio companies across the board. And that's probably some of the great learnings that we've had during this period. The challenge for businesses is never get comfortable where you are. Always keep challenging yourself to get better, because those small efforts, even made consistently, at some point will pay off significantly. And the businesses that seem to have ridden this period much better are the ones that spent those small efforts over a long period of time, trying to make those teeny tiny changes. For example, one business in our portfolio has been chasing a particular customer for 2 years. They never stopped. And after this year is when the customer actually committed, okay, I will buy this amount of product from you and do so for another 2 years. And that has really been what has helped them get their revenues now to pre-pandemic efforts.
Thank you, Susan. That was especially specific examples. That was very positive in terms of how businesses can think and what are the unique characteristics that businesses need to have to be able to thrive, or not thrive, need to survive, pandemics, and then of course thrive. In the interest of time, I really need to quickly move to Mr. Ashraful and have his perspective on Grameen Telecom's response, alongside, of course, with all the other Grameen companies, and what kind of mega projects that they have undertaken in this past year.
Yeah, thanks, Lakshmi. The COVID-19 started in Bangladesh early March 2020, and then government declared general holiday from March 26, 2020. And it is not completely lockdown, it is one kind of semi-lockdown situation. The general holiday, the poor peoples and those who are working with informal sector, they're worse affected because they're buying food from their daily income. So due to general holiday and semi-lockdown situation, they lost their job. That time, numbers of NGOs, government organizations, political parties started food support to the peoples. Then Grameen come forward to food support for the ultra poor peoples. So 3 Grameen organizations came forward. At the time, Grameen Telecom Trust, and Grameen Kollan to fund for food support through other Grameen organizations. 13 Grameen organizations involved from their local office in the different places around the Bangladesh. So what is our different than other program, that we selected some family and we just provide food for them for at least 3 months. Because if I start food support program for 1 day here, and after that we disappear, they will not get food tomorrow. So to whom we'll support for long time. That will helpful for them. This was the unique for our program. So from 1st of April to 2020, we started the program and we selected more than 10,000 family with a family member around 40,000. So how we did, we make a pack with 10 kgs of rice, 5 kgs of potato, 1 kg of dal, half liter of oil, half kg salt, and 1 soap, and half kgs of onion. It makes a pack. So then we distribute it weekly basis. So program was for per family around 3,000 taka food will supply. And it is around 36 US dollar. And total involvement of that program it was 24 million BDT. It is around 283,000 US dollar. So during pandemic, it was not easy to buy food and supply to them. So we made another program for cash support through digital money transfer. So it helps both those who are taking and those we are providing. Because from office, we can send money through digital money transfer. They can buy food as they need, what is essential and what they want. So this was the food support program at that time. And now I'm coming with another program. This is very important at that time for the country. Grameen Telecom played a vital role during COVID pandemic, along with another Grameen company named Grameen Fabrics and Fashions. You know, when pandemic started, government declared few hospital as a COVID designated hospital, where COVID patient will come and they will get treatment. But actually at that time, there is no adequate protective gear for the doctors, nurses, and health workers. Even we don't know what is this. So desperately need at that time for PPE gown, mask, hand gloves, protective goggles, face mask, etc. But actually supply was not from government as well. Even it was scarce in Bangladesh and nobody producing in Bangladesh. So one COVID designated hospital, they gave one sample to us. Why they gave one sample to us? Grameen has two big garments industry, and we are well known for, you can say, different type of fabrics, a special type of fabrics and garments manufacturer. We are well known. So they thought that if we send this sample to Grameen can do something. So we try to give them similar item from our factory. We source fabrics and give it to them, and we place it to the government authority for approval, because any medical equipments you need to get the government permission. Finally, we got it, but it was not up to the mark. It is grade 1 PPE we made, and we got immediately order for 4,000 pieces to supply them. This was the actually turning point. Then Professor Yunus advised us, you can go for high standard PPE for supply. It is needed in this country. Then we tried to source it from China. We found a special type of fabrics and accessories, and we bring it and made classic high grade PPE. And finally, we got the HGS certificate of grade 3 PPE, and we made 71,000 PPE, and we imported 50,000 pieces of KN95 mask, 200,000 pieces surgical mask, 10,000 pieces goggles, and also hand gloves. Along with PPE, we donated to the COVID designated hospital in Dhaka city, 17 COVID designated hospital in Dhaka city. And we have 8 divisional headquarters, and where the COVID designated hospital, we donated PPE and mask to them. So it was actually very important at that time to face COVID patient, and it is essential for the front liner to fight the COVID pandemic at the time. Also, we supplied a huge number of surgical masks to the law enforcing agency, because they are always working in the road and field. So this whole program, we just expend more than $1 million. It is not $1-2 amount things. It is a huge amount needed for this particular items. So at that time, also one important protective gear was required for mass people. This is face mask. You know, the face mask is essential for everybody, not only the healthcare worker, also for the general people. Government is announcing without mask you cannot come out. But how? Poor people will buy this because they have no money to buy the food. So at that time, Professor Yunus advised us also, your factory is producing a lot of knitted fabrics. So you can produce numbers of masks. So you know that 2-3 layer knitted mask can protect COVID. So we start to produce fabrics mask, and we took initiative to produce 2 million pieces of mask for poor people in this country. And we distributed that mask with 18 Grameen organizations and 56 NGOs and volunteer organizations throughout the country. This was a huge impact to protect Corona for poor people who have no ability to buy the mask. Now you are talking about, this is the COVID response from Grameen Telecom as well as other organization of Grameen. So if you allow me, then I will go for, I know that time situation is very close. So I will go for screen sharing. Otherwise, mega project cannot be briefed. So I think I will not take that much of time, very small. I think everybody is seeing my screen. Hello?
Yes, sir, we can see it.
Yeah. So we have undertook 4 mega projects here. One is Telecom Bhavan complex. The building construction would be a social business. Telecom Bhavan is one of the unique example. So objectives of the project to provide adequate and quality space for the Grameen organization. It is a hub of implementation of a strategic plan, expansion and proper management of various social business. It created an opportunity for Grameen organization to have the ownership of their own office space at a very reasonable price. You know that in Dhaka city or the land price is very high, and all of our organization cannot have that ability to buy the land and build the building. So Grameen Telecom build this building and sell it to other Grameen organization with at cost. So it is one kind of social business idea. So our first phase, the built area is 32,000 square meter. Project cost is $15 million US. And another 2 building is coming up. And the total building area will be 56,700 square meter. And budget of the whole project is $30 million US. Project will be completed 2024. So first phase already been completed, and we start office there. You have seen this building here. July 1990, we start to office this new complex. So another 2 building is coming up. This picture, this one and that one will be come up. Another big project is Samajik Convention Center and Hospitality Management Institute. The objectives of the project is established an international standard convention center for our own use, as well as for national and international organization. Also to create skilled manpower through Hospitality Management Institute. To facilitate national and international seminar, assembly, etc. in a larger scale at an affordable price. Because you know that in Bangladesh, convention center is very scarce. If you take one day, they will charge more. So our plan is we'll charge them at cost. Hotel and related business unit will be established to run the whole project in a social business model. The facilities will be used for attaining practical training for the student of Hospitality Management Institute. The first phase, the draw line I draw here, the red line, completed June 2017. So built area was 28,700 square meter. The project cost already involved $27 million US. When the whole project will be completed, like this other building, Then total buildable area will be 327,000 square meter, and the total budget of the project is $170 million US. So you
Thank you so much, Mr. Ashra. Sorry, we are just running out of time, so I'm going to have to ask our
next project, and I will finish because this is the last slide from. This is actually the dream project of us, the Samajik Hospital project. The objective of the project to provide a state-of-art healthcare services to the mass people at an affordable price. Besides regular student, economically challenged student, especially female, will get the opportunity for medical education. Project comprised with 500-bed hospital, 500-seat capacity medical college, 900-seat capacity nursing college, and 700 female nursing student accommodation facilities. And Institute. Initially, we already constructed Grameen Caledonian College of Nursing. You know that and hostel building for female student. We hand over this project last month, 2021. Built area is 35,000 square meter, and project cost was $15 million US around. When the whole project will be completed, we will start hospital project from September. It is 147,000 square meter, and the total project cost is $230 million US. The project completion year will be 2025. The last one I will not brief because time is already gone. This is the hospital already designed by the American consultant. And the last one is another similar hospital and nursing institute is coming in Chittagong. And the built area will be 28,000 square meter. And it will be $12.4 million US project. Project completion year is 2024. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Those are very exciting projects, but also all the work that you've done through the COVID pandemic in Bangladesh. It seems very concrete, very specific, and also in tune and in line with what we heard from the other panelists about businesses pivoting, looking at what strengths that they have, and leveraging those strengths further to address the pandemic or to change what their businesses would look like to position themselves for the future. I know we're terribly out of time, but thank you everybody for participating, and a very special thank you to all the panelists for joining us today and sharing with us your thoughts, and for making time for this event. And thank you, Professor Yunus, as always, for your support, your direction, and your vision.
Thank you so much, Lakshmi. Thank you again for the panel. I want to say a big thank you to everybody joining us. And again, a massive thank you to our in-country team in the Catholic University of Zimbabwe. I hope you guys have had a really engaging and enjoyable day having these workshops. We have 2 workshops left before we close day 1. So we're just going to have a look at with the technical team to check in that we're ready for the next session. But again, a huge thank you to all the panelists so far, all the workshops that we've had. And again, yeah, thanks for our huge audience for staying with us and making it what it is today. So yeah, I'll ask the technical team, Aziz.